All right. Today we are diving deep into what might be one of the most thorough blueprints for police reform ever put together. It's a plan that was born from more than a decade of crisis, and honestly, it offers a totally new way of thinking about the relationship between police and the people they're meant to serve.
And let's just start with this one sentence. It's from official testimony. I reported him, he got promoted. Wow, that just cuts right to the bone, doesn't it? That is the sound of a system where accountability isn't just failing publicly, it's failing on a deeply personal, profound level. And it really sets the stage for a total breakdown of trust.
And if you want to see that breakdown as a number, well, here it is. By 2020, public trust in the ethics of Victoria Police had absolutely cratered, down to just 42%. Now, get this, only 3 years earlier, that number was sitting at 76%. So we're not talking about a slow leak here. This was a free fall, an absolute catastrophic collapse of public confidence.
So to really understand that collapse, you've got to realize this was never about a few bad apples. That's the easy explanation, right? No. What a series of scandals between 2010 and 2025 really exposed was something much deeper, a structural failure baked into the entire system of policing.
Okay, so let's just walk through the timeline because it really tells the story. Things kind of blew up in 2018 with the Lawyer X scandal, revealing police were using a defense lawyer as an informant. That shakes the very foundation of the justice system. Fast forward to 2020, and we're seeing viral videos of excessive force, plus a huge public backlash to heavy-handed pandemic enforcement. Trust was eroding right there on the streets for everyone to see. And then, by 2023, official reviews come out confirming, yep, there's a pattern of handling misconduct inside the force with kid gloves. You see? Each one of these wasn't just a bad news day. It was another sledgehammer to the foundation of public trust.
So you have to ask, how did all these cracks cause the whole building to fall down? Well, the analysis identifies a kind of engine that was driving the whole crisis. It's called the recursive failure loop. And the key idea here is that this wasn't just random. It wasn't a string of bad luck. It was a predictable, self-feeding cycle of breakdown.
And that's the big question, right? How does one scandal, one act of misconduct, spiral out of control and lead to a complete collapse of both capability and trust? Well, the secret is seeing how each failure becomes the fuel for the next one. Okay, so here is the anatomy of that failure engine. It all kicks off with a breach of accountability. Someone does something wrong, and nothing really happens. So what's next? Well, that allows a toxic culture, that infamous wall of silence, to grow and fester inside. The good officers, the ones who joined for the right reasons, they get demoralized. They leave, and boom, that's your collapse of capability. The public experiences this as simply harm and poor service, so they pull back their trust. And here's the kicker. That lack of trust and public oversight creates the perfect environment for an even bigger, even worse breach to happen. It's a vicious cycle that just gets stronger with every rotation.
And if this whole thing is an engine, what's the one broken part that lets it run wild? It's the linchpin. It was a completely flawed oversight system, or as the source material puts it, it was accountability without teeth.
And you don't have to guess how bad it was. Just look at how Victoria's watchdog, IBAC, stacked up against others around the world. In places like New Zealand or the UK, their oversight bodies investigate somewhere around 10 to 15% of complaints. IBAC, a tiny 1 to 2%. On top of that, it had no binding power to actually enforce discipline. By any international standard, this was one of the weakest models out there.
So, if the watchdog was only looking at 2% of complaints, where did all the others go? You're not going to believe this. A shocking 92% were simply sent back to the police to investigate themselves. Let that sink in for a second. The independent body handled a tiny fraction, leaving almost everything to an internal process. And yeah, this quote just nails it, doesn't it? It's a closed loop. The fox is auditing the henhouse. What else can you call it? When the institution you're complaining about is the same one investigating that complaint, you don't have a system for accountability. You have a system for self-protection.
Okay, so that's the problem, and it's pretty bleak. But just diagnosing the disease is only half the battle. Now we're going to pivot to the cure. And this is where it gets really interesting, because we're looking at a huge systemic blueprint for change called the custody of power. The idea here isn't just to patch up the holes, it's to build a whole new ship.
And at the heart of this whole thing is a completely different way of looking at power. The central idea is this: the police don't own their authority. It's not theirs by right, it's a trust, delegated to them by us, the public. And like any trust, it's temporary. It has to be witnessed, it must be accounted for,
and it can be revoked. This is so much more than a policy tweak. It's a fundamental moral and ethical reset. And this slide really breaks down that before and after mindset. You've got the old paradigm on the left, power as sovereignty. Here, authority is just assumed, it's unreviewable, the institution thinks it is the law, and any kind of outside oversight, that's seen as a threat. But on the right, you have the new model, power as custody. Here, authority is delegated, it's conditional, the institution serves the law, and oversight isn't a threat, it's a fundamental duty.
Now, the plan to get there is incredibly detailed. It's laid out in 16 interconnected parts, built in 4 major stages. First, you have to face the truth and diagnose the failure. Second, you design a new covenant, a new set of rules based on law and renewal. Third, and this is crucial, you build systems for transparency and oversight so you can measure everything with hard proof. And finally, you lay out a detailed plan for execution to actually deliver the change and make it stick.
And this brings us to maybe the most important idea in the entire blueprint. The core principle is proof, not promises. I mean, we've all heard vague promises of reform before, right? This is about moving past the talk and creating changes that are concrete, measurable, and permanent.
So what does that actually look like? How do you break that failure loop we talked about? Well, here's how. Remember accountability without teeth? This plan empowers external oversight with real, binding powers. Remember the wall of silence? It creates a genuine whistleblower shield so good officers can speak up without fear. To fix the collapse in capability and trust, you mandate radical digital transparency with public dashboards, and you rebuild training from square one. And you bring the community in to help design policy so they're an active participant, not just a passive observer. Every pillar is a direct countermeasure to a specific point of failure.
Let's just zoom in on one of those for a second, a public witness dashboard. Think about this. This isn't some dusty report that gets released once a year. This would be a live portal providing real-time data on complaints, on use of force incidents, even on the health of the police workforce itself. It makes transparency an active daily function, not some passive gesture.
And this quote just crystallizes the whole cultural shift. Train guardians, not gladiators. It says it all, right? The goal is no longer to create warriors for the street. It's to develop guardians of the public trust, officers who see their role as one of custodianship, not control.
And make no mistake, the need for this change is urgent. This number, over 850, that's the number of vacant police roles in 2025. It is a stark, flashing red light showing that capability collapse we talked about. The old system didn't just break trust, it broke the workforce. These reforms aren't just about ethics, they're about survival and restoring basic function.
So a complete blueprint for transformation exists, one designed to take that vicious cycle of failure and turn it into a virtuous system of trust. The analysis is done, the path is mapped, the final lingering question is a political one and a social one. Who has the will to turn this page from blueprint into law?